Hello, Charles Heflin here, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the realities of the math that plays out over time in the e-commerce Amazon business. Whether you're engaged in Amazon, eBay, e-commerce, whatever, uh, these rules still apply. And it's funny because I get emails all the time from people saying, "Hey, Charles, your strategies seem interesting, but I just don't know if they're quite right for me." And I have to chuckle at that a little bit because these aren't strategies that I invented. These are mathematical realities that I discovered by playing with a calculator that nobody else had put together. So I finally put the calculator together myself. And I'm definitely not a math guy. Math was my worst subject in school. I hate to think about it. It absolutely like drilled my brain to come up with this thing, and I had to hire a mathematician actually to help me build this because I wanted to know how the numbers play out over time. I wanted to know, what am I actually doing in this business? Am I actually making anywhere near what I'm thinking that I'm doing? So let's look at the arbitrage scenario first, because a lot of people still do arbitrage, and that's fine. It's a way to get through and make some money. And I just want to show you how the arbitrage game works here. Let's look here at the 30-day growth simulator. Let's say that I invest $1,000 into product, I buy 100 units, and let's say that arbitrage might average a little higher ROIs. They're a little bit harder to find, but maybe you can average that. Maybe you're pretty good and you can do that. So if you were to sell through 100% of those units in 30 days, you can expect to make your 40% or your $400 during that 30-day period. But we all know that things don't quite work out that way. So let's go ahead and take out some customer returns, and let's take out some units that didn't sell in that 30-day period, and let's drop this down to a more realistic 80%. So now what you can see that immediately happens is your overall 30-day growth is at 12%. So popular belief would hold that, hey, I'm growing at 40%, I'm growing my money at 40%, but you're really not growing that much within that 30-day period. So if you have bills and you have employees and everybody likes to get paid, in 30-day time frames, then things aren't quite working out the way that you thought. And while a 12% growth might be pretty good for you, by the time you take out bills and you pay for this or that, or maybe you get a few more customer returns in, it starts to really eat away at that, and you're not really making as much as you thought. So, how can you combat this problem? Well, really, the only way to combat that problem is to reinvest your capital as you're earning. Ideally, you would do it every single day. Whatever you earned yesterday, you'd pull it in and then you'd start immediately reinvesting that money into new SKUs so that you can flip your capital. So you want to be flipping your capital at the very least twice in a 30-day period. And as you can see, this will almost keep pace with what your average ROI is. You're still a little bit low. If you manage to squeeze another one in there, then you're starting to look really good. But, that's all fine and good. When you have a little bit of capital to invest, let's say that you invest up to $10,000 and you're doing that across 1,000 units. Your workload across 1,000 units, you have to calculate that. Then you also have to be realistic. Maybe you don't have enough SKUs to roll all that capital onto, because you're not just going to purchase 1,000 units. You're going to end up purchasing over 3,000 units, because you're going to sell through that first 1,000 units, then you're going to sell through the second 1,000, then you need to do it a third time so that you can hit this number up here. Now that's not extremely realistic, because if you don't have enough SKUs to roll your capital onto, then this number here is going to change. The percentage of gross revenue reinvested during each of these three periods may not be 100%. Maybe you can only do 60%. So looking at this, in order to accomplish what you're seeing here on the calculator, you need to completely flip your revenue three times in a 30-day period, and you need to flip 60% of that revenue, and you need to sell through at least 80% of those units. So in order to increase this number, you're going to need more SKUs to roll your capital onto, and you need to make sure that each of the SKUs that you invest in, you need to be able to, as a seller, considering other competition, you need to be able to sell at least three of those units in a 30-day period. So if all of your SKUs meet this minimum, then you can expect that you would be able to completely flip and roll your capital three times in a 30-day period. If you invest in SKUs who have a minimum of four, meaning that you could sell 4 units in a 30-day period, then you're doing even better because the little conveyor belts, as things sell, they sit on a conveyor belt when they sell, that drops off and you get a sale. You can expect that you're going to get 4 sales in a month across all of your SKUs. Then you can do this. So the way to increase this number is to ensure that you have enough SKUs to roll your capital onto. So you can get this up to say a 90%, and you can see that your overall 30-day growth is really good. At this point, you're really starting to crank. But the problem is with arbitrage, you can't source that many units. You can't source 3 or 4 thousand units in a 30-day period unless you hire massive amounts of people to go out and do the shopping for you. And it's just a process that you have to repeat over and over and over again. So at some point, you're going to get to a bottleneck where you just can't possibly grow any larger. You're just going to kind of sit where you're at with your revenue. You might make about $8,000 a month or so, and then that's kind of your cap. You can't really go beyond it. So this is where you want to switch to a wholesale model. You see, with wholesale, you don't have to reinvest time and energy into your SKUs. You go out, you look, you find your SKUs that meet your minimum qualifications of say 3 or 4 flips in a 30-day period, and you invest in those. And most of the SKUs that you find in wholesale are going to be replenishable. So as they sell, you go back and you buy more of them, and you sell them again, and you buy more, and you do this over and over and over again. So this kind of alleviates the bottleneck. So let's look at the numbers from the angle of doing wholesale now. So look back here at the simulator, and I'm immediately going to drop down my average ROI to 20%, which is about average on wholesale, which is fine because I don't have to reinvest time and energy into finding SKUs. I know where they're at, and I can just keep reinvesting in them over and over again. So that's the sacrifice, but the sacrifice is well worth it. Because in so doing, I'm dealing with manufactured direct goods, so I can probably get this up to somewhere around a 90%. If I have enough SKUs, I can get this up to 100%. And then if I want to be really aggressive and do what the lowballers do, I can actually sacrifice individual ROI per unit. Let's say I take this down to an 18%, or heck, let's make that a 16%. Let's go really low. And in so doing, this also increases the rate at which your capital turnover frequency of your SKUs is going to increase. So this number down here will actually go up. So now this is starting to look pretty good. Even though I'm running at very small average per SKU ROIs, I can see that my overall 30-day growth is really good because I'm flipping my capital at least 6 times. And I'm doing this by virtue of the fact that I'm grabbing the buy box away from all the other sellers because I'm lowballing over here. But the problem in wholesale and really any business model that you go after is the simple fact that you don't have enough SKUs to roll all that capital onto. You need a never-ending supply of new products coming in that you can successfully source that meet your minimum ROI requirements, that meet your minimum capital turnover frequency requirement, and all of the other requirements that go into your decision-making process in order to think about investing in a new SKU. So that's where my new service comes in. I created a service that alleviates the problem of getting new SKUs in because it takes a team of people to do this. You really need somebody who's going out and they back engineer other sellers out there who are successfully selling the brands of others, which is what you and I do. We go out and we find brands of other people, we buy them, we sell them, we do this all day. So how can we do this in increasing frequency? Well, the answer is that you need a team to do this. So I put together a team to do this, and what they do is they'll go to seller ratings, for example, and they'll look at USA, and then they'll come in here and they'll look at other sellers out there. And their job is to go out and look for sellers that are similar to us in the fact that they sell a bunch of different brands. They don't sell necessarily their own brands, though they might sell some of their own stuff. They mostly sell the brands of others. And then we go through and we back engineer the exact products and the exact brands that the sellers are selling. The theory there is that in doing that, sellers aren't stupid, and they didn't make it to the seller ratings top list because they're stupid. they're actually buying things that they make money with. So we go back and we back engineer the brands that they're selling. Then we look at the exact products that they're selling. And then this gives us a clue into a new brand that we should go after. So, for example, we know that this seller, Endless Possibilities, is selling this brand Duracasa, and I'm looking here at the exact products that they're selling there. Some of them, the BSR, seem to be pretty good. So, the next thing that my team does is we're going to actually make contact with Duracasa, and we're going to gather their contact details and everything so that the next part of my team can go in and actually apply with Duracasa. But that's only done once we know if it's a viable brand. So in order to do that, my team is now going to back engineer the entire brand of Duracasa, and they're going to extract all the potentially profitable products by running a deep analysis on the brand itself. So now after my team has discovered potentially profitable brands, they go through and here's a look at a brand called Badger Basket. So they do a deep analysis on it. They go through Amazon and they extract every single product sold on Amazon by Badger Basket, and then we do an analysis to see which products are potentially profitable. So, for example, the rows that you see that are in tan here, Amazon is on them. So, of course, unless you want to compete with Amazon, you might stay away from those. So, what we're looking for here are the ones in green, which indicate that there is a positive net ROI indicator. So, for example, this one shows a net profit of $14, which is a 20% net ROI, pretty good BSR. We also do analysis that shows how many units that you can expect to sell, the number of sellers, the estimated sales per month, etc. So what you would do here is roll through here and you can download these reports. You can sort them. You can eliminate things that you don't want to see, such as if Amazon is selling it, you can just sort by this column here and pull those out. And then you can only look at the ones that you want to see. So this is a good indicator going in, where if I'm just scrolling through here visually, I can see all the ones in green. This looks like a great prospect for me to now make contact with the Badger Basket brand and apply to be a retailer. So as you can imagine, this saves a huge amount of time, because now I don't have to waste time applying to vendors, not knowing if I'm going to be able to sell anything or not. Now I know before I go in and do the application process approximately how many SKUs are within that brand that I can successfully sell. And I know that I can successfully sell them because another seller is also doing so. And then if I ever want to be reminded of the exact products that the seller is selling, there's also a convenient link which takes you to the exact products that that seller is selling from each particular brand. So you can go back in and say, hey, they're selling it, I can probably sell it too. So long story short, I created this service not only for myself because I use it to source products, but I created it for others so that way it can be a very cost-effective solution. So that way we all have a never-ending source of new SKUs coming in, so that we can keep this capital reinvestment percentage as high as possible, and we can flip our revenue as many times as we possibly can within that 30-day period. So as soon as you adopt this process, and again, I have to chuckle because people say, hey, Charles, that's a great strategy. I love it. I'd like to do that, but there's some problems with it that I can't get past. So I'm just not going to do it. And I'm like, well, these aren't my strategies. I didn't invent these things. These are mathematical realities. And when you play by the numbers and you do this, you're really going to start seeing some exponential growth in your business. And I promise you're going to quickly reach a point where you can't spend all the capital that you're bringing in. And that's a good problem to have. And that's where my service comes in, and that's going to help you get that capital spent, because you're going to have a never-ending barrage of new SKUs coming in that you can vet, so you can roll your capital and you can increase your numbers here. So again, having this never-ending source of SKUs coming in and letting my team do most of the vetting up front really saves a whole bunch of time, money, and resources for you, because you can cut straight to the chase. You can apply directly to the places that look promising, and then you can add a whole bunch of new SKUs to your portfolio. And that's really what this game's all about. Because if you're not playing the numbers and you're not rolling your capital, let's say that you're only doing this a couple of times, just kind of haphazardly, then you can really see that your overall 30-day growth isn't nearly meeting the pace that you thought it was, and you're actually spinning your wheels. You're doing a whole lot of work for a really tiny bit of a return. And this is kind of how most people operate. You know, a lot of people will buy for a whole 30-day period. They don't reinvest their capital at all. They think they're doing a great thing by stocking up, and their overall 30-day growth is looking more like this. And then they want to, price above the buy box, or maybe even just stay with the buy box. And when you do that, you can see you're still not quite doing or outpacing your average ROI per unit. And that's really the name of the game. If you want to experience massive growth in your business and something that you can be proud of, something that's building and growing, then you really need to start focusing on reinvesting your capital multiple times in 30 days. And the only way to really do that is to have a never ending barrage of new SKUs coming in that you're vetting and you're applying with these vendors and you're getting approved, and then you're going through their catalogs and you're buying these new SKUs that meet your minimum requirements. And my team that I put together does most of this work for you. The only thing that you have to do is go through and decide which ones you want to apply with. You have to go through their application process, and then once you're approved, you run through, and then now you start grabbing those SKUs that have already been back engineered, and then you begin selling them. So if I know I want to flip my capital at least 3 or 4 times, let's just say 4 times in a 30-day period, then I want to come over here and look at these reports, and I want to look at estimated share of sales per month. So this is the estimate of how many sales that I will get as a new competitor coming in on that SKU. So for example, this one here that shows 6, I can expect that my capital turnover frequency on this particular SKU is 6. That means that I could, if I bought all these same SKUs with this same qualification, that I could expect to flip my capital 6 times in a 30-day period with this SKU. And anything that doesn't meet that minimum requirement, I just won't mess with it. Like this one here, and of course Amazon's on it. I'm not going to mess with it. This too is below my capital turnover frequency requirement, but this one looks good. So that's the name of the game. Hopefully my service is clicking with you in the fact that this is a necessary thing. If you don't use my service, then you need to build a process like this in order to play the calculator, to play the numbers the way that you need to play them in order to experience the kind of growth that you would like to have. But I've made my service cost effective in that it would cost you more to pull together the people and the resources needed to create this lead generation system. It would cost you more to do it yourself than it would be to share it with other people, as we're doing here in this service. Now, of course, this service can't be shared with a bunch of people. There's a limit of 20 people that will ever see any of these leads, and at the end of every month, the leads are archived so that new people coming in can't access the old stuff, because that would be unfair to all of us. So again, I use these exact leads myself. This is my team that I personally put together and trained. And hopefully I've covered about everything here, but if I haven't, then please do let me know. Shoot me an email, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much.